now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Okay, good morning, folks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining us. As you guys know, we don't normally have a segment on Saturdays. That's quite unusual. But I am going to break that tradition. Of course, you guys know when something is extremely important so that we can address it head on. So you guys know that late last night we did a story on a bit of an update on the quarantine situation. A lot of us were very, very surprised to find out that the young lady who was breaching quarantine last week Sunday, Skylar Mack, and who attended the jet skiing event, had basically gotten a slap on the wrist. I mean, it is shocking because we were all anticipating that she would have gotten a much, more significant sentence, fine even. I mean, I knew that, listen, they're not going to put anybody in jail for a COVID infraction. And I don't even know, this is where the MPs now are really, really deceptive with the people, because we have this expectation that when it says, oh, or jail time, that someone is actually going to go to jail. And that simply does not happen. And so I think the people have an unrealistic expectation. Not that you shouldn't have that expectation, but based on what the MLAs are actually doing, they are essentially fooling the people into thinking that we've got these stringent provisions in place. As I said on Monday, when we were actually reading the legislation, and it said up to $10,000, that made me pause, because I know the little that I know about the law, that whoa, up to $10,000 isn't the same as she shall be fined $10,000. I think that many of you were a bit shocked at that, but now we see the proof of exactly how that materializes and what it means. So here we are today talking about a bit of a situation which I think a lot of you will find interesting. Not only has she gotten no fine at all, zilch, zero, absolutely none. She will serve community service, 40 hours. That'll take her a couple days to do, I suppose. And she's paid for her own quarantine, which everyone who is forced into mandatory quarantine has to do. You know, a lot of you have recognized, in fact, that her boyfriend, Ramjeet, is actually going to be suffering more consequences than she will, which the irony of that, I blame him just as much as I blame her, to be quite frank, because she wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for him. So she came in to see his event. I don't know if, she wasn't informed properly. I mean, she would have known, because she was the one, she's an adult, and she applied to actually come in under the quarantine provisions. So surely she signed the agreement, and she should have full comprehension. She's a university student. It's not like she's stupid. So she should have full comprehension of exactly what that means. But regardless of that, I'm a bit perplexed at how he gets, for an additional 2 months, to be on house arrest. And, he has to wear a monitor. And to me, it says that we're actually punishing him more than we were punishing her. Now, the judge made some comments about the fact that, he's obviously an international figure and maybe people look up to him more. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he had a responsibility to the people in this community to actually do the right thing. And I totally agree with all of that. I just don't see how he had more of a responsibility than she did, and how the sentence then varies what he actually gets versus she got. I think they should have both been made to pay a substantial fine. And so when we're talking about the fine and the results of this, don't blame the judges. Don't blame the people who are breaching quarantine, because they're going to do what they want to do. Obviously, that's very apparent. But at the end of the day, we have to blame the legislators for this. They're the ones who signed off on this law and who had this law drafted in such a way where it has no teeth. It doesn't compel the court to do anything. It's totally discretionary on the court, up to $10,000, up to 2 years imprisonment. Well, $0 is up to. And that's what we need to recognize, how this government has failed us. So imagine we went from $1,000 fine, which was, you were getting $1,000 fine, now to being in a position where you can get no fine at all. It just boggles the mind that our legislators have done this and have managed to fool the people. And here we were thinking, ooh, finally, the law has some teeth. So listen, we're going to talk some more about that. But I have a guest who is joining us this morning. This young lady was one of the 6 persons that was impacted by the breach of Skylar. So she was at the event, and we're going to have her tell her story this morning. It's just shocking to me that other people are being penalized far more than Skylar. Does that even make any sense? I'm going to repeat it again. There are other innocent people who were at this event who had no clue what shenanigans Skylar was up to. Those individuals, Caymanians, are being penalized far worse than Skylar, who came to our country and breached our provisions. And we're going to talk to one of those young ladies this morning so that you can understand exactly what I'm talking about. And not only is she being penalized, or they're being penalized more than Skylar, they're not really being monitored in the way in which they should be either. I mean, this is absolutely shocking. When I heard the details of this, I was very, very disturbed, because every time I talk about this COVID-19 quarantine situation, the powers that be in government feel like I am unfairly picking on them. They will say things like, oh, Sandy, you're going too hard on us. We've heard your comments, but we've had so many people come in to quarantine. They haven't breached it. It's been working great. It's been working fine. And I keep hearing stories that it isn't working great and it isn't working fine. Not as much as the government certainly thinks, but none of those people had the cojones to step forward and say, let me come on your show and tell your people exactly how it's not working. They're just telling me, and I'm kind of trying to pass it on to you. It becomes hearsay. This morning, folks, we have a young lady who is prepared, and she is a Caymanian, who is prepared to put her job, her livelihood, everything on the line by giving the truth and speaking with her voice. And that's important, because no one can explain to you what is happening more than the people who are actually in the trenches and who are being impacted by the actions of, whether it's Skylar, Ramjeet, the Travel Cayman team, or whatever. So I would like to welcome our guest onto the show. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So do a little introduction of yourself. Let our listeners know who you are.
Okay. My name is Gabby Miles. I am one of the people who was present basically at the event on Sunday. That was impacted by Skylar coming out to the event and being present around majority of us without our knowledge that she was actually breaching quarantine.
Mhm.
So basically, the police were called, and we were unaware that she slipped her bracelet off and left it in her quarantine establishment. So everyone around her basically was told to go home, that it was okay, that she wasn't around us for a long period of time. So we were okay. Then
Okay, so let
Monday
me just
morning,
pause you, Gabby. Let me just pause you
okay.
right there. So you were around her. Now, when you say you were around her, presumably you don't know this young lady.
No, I don't.
Okay.
All I know is that was one of the racer's girlfriends, and that's
Mhm.
all I was told.
Okay. So you see this girl coming around, this blonde girl, she's hanging out with you guys. Was she under your tent? Like, how close proximity were you to her?
To my knowledge, she was just in the water. So I was only by the shore, and she occasionally came up to shore and conversated with some of the other racers, and then would go back into the water. So like we really didn't notice her. There was at least 300 people on the beach. Like it wasn't something that we were alerted to. So, she kind of just blended in with everybody else.
All right. Now we had heard from the day that this happened, this last week, Sunday, that she was under a tent. She was in the water. She was even holding somebody's child. Now we receive, the photograph of that individual and their child. And obviously we don't want to put, that person's business out there, or that child, but we do know that that person is a government worker. You were also a government worker as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're contacted. Now, when you say that they spoke to you on Sunday evening, was that at the event itself?
Yeah.
Did
So
they detain you at the event?
so they showed up to the event. Someone alerted the police, and they showed up to the event, and they basically told us that she was in breach of quarantine, and they told us that they had contacted someone within health services and told us that we didn't need to quarantine, but someone would reach out to us. So
That you
we
didn't that you
left.
didn't need to quarantine.
Yeah, that's what they told us on Sunday when they came and got her.
Okay. So they picked her up. They tell you that you don't need to quarantine. So you say, oh, great. Okay, I'm going to leave. And you leave, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And then what happens next?
So then Monday morning, I was actually on vacation and I get a call from HSA telling me that I need to go into quarantine and I could either have a choice to quarantine in a government facility or I could go to a colleague's house who also was told that she needed to go into quarantine. So they gave me an
So
hour.
wait a minute, Gabby, because I cannot possibly be hearing this correctly.
Yeah.
Sunday, late afternoon, they show up and they
Yeah,
tell you that now they're supposed to be contact tracing, right? So they
right.
tell you, oh, okay, you're fine. You guys are fine. Go home. So nobody else went in quarantine that night but her and the boyfriend?
To my knowledge, that's the only people who went into quarantine.
Okay. And they allow you to leave. And then at what point on Monday do they reach back out to you and say, oops, we actually do want you to go into quarantine?
This was I actually spoke to my colleague and I asked her if she had to go into quarantine and they told her yes. So I actually had to reach out to them and I told them that, hey, I was around this individual. I was also
What?
around my yes, I reached out to them
So they
because
actually never contacted you back
no, they
after
didn't.
Sunday. You contacted them.
Yes, because of my colleague, because
Wow.
my colleague had to go into quarantine. So I took it upon myself because if she was around, like obviously if she was around her, then I was around her as well. So I reached out to them and just told them, like I need to know on like just to be safe, do I need to go in? So I spoke to one of the people who work at health services
Mm.
and I basically told them that this is what happened, da da da. They said, let me speak to the doctor and I'll get back to you. So I would say around 3 o'clock, I got
So
a
I'm going to
call.
pause you there for a second. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
So basically, 24 hours, more or less, would
Yeah.
have passed from the time that they came to the event and the
Yeah.
time that you went to them and said, maybe I should be in quarantine too, if you're going to put my coworker in quarantine, because we were all kind of in the same area.
Right. Right.
So in that 24 hours, you could have gone to a party.
Yeah.
You could have hung out with your grandmother. Maybe Sunday evening you wanted to go see Granny. You could have had dinner with the family on, Sunday night. You could have
Mm-hmm.
had contact with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
You went to the hospital to get tested.
No,
What
no,
did,
no.
what
I
did you do
never, they actually
on the
came to
Monday?
us. I stayed home. So I was on vacation. So I
Okay.
never left my house until
No, but I'm
after I
saying you
came
could
home.
have gone all over the
Yo,
place,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely could have. Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. Okay. Folks, if you think that that's actually the worst part of the story, you would be woefully mistaken
Yeah.
because it gets better. So you reach out to them,
Yeah.
Gabby, and you say, okay, maybe I should be in quarantine because I was exposed to her. What is their response? What do they say to you?
They basically told me that I had an hour to pack my stuff and I had the choice to go quarantine with my colleague or I could go to a facility. So I packed my stuff and I came to their house and no one came to see if I was here. So I don't know why they gave me an hour to travel here. Um, we haven't had any bracelets put on us because they said that we can be trusted because we are law enforcement. Now,
Mm.
I'm not arguing that, but at the same time, I just don't quite understand how.
So hold on, Gabby. Hold on. Let's back it up. The public, what are they called? Public health
Yeah,
individuals finally tell you, okay, pack up your stuff. You got an hour. They let you quarantine at a private facility,
yeah,
a residence, it's an apartment. And then they tell you that you don't have to wear a bracelet because they trust you.
Yeah, because we're all
Because
law
you're
enforcement.
semi law enforcement.
Yeah.
Folks, have we not learned anything yet? This is now December, and we're still talking about the honor system and the fact that we can trust people. Thank God that Gabby is an honest individual and she's actually staying put with how many other people?
There is
It's
4 of
6
us
of you in
total.
total.
Yeah.
It's 4 of you plus the 2 other.
Yeah.
Because we were told that there was an additional 6 persons, but 4 of you are quarantining together,
Yeah.
including a child.
Yes.
And so the honor system is, you work for customs, you'll be fine. We trust you. Just don't breach.
Yeah, basically.
Anybody
That's what
coming
they
to
said.
see you, anyone checking in on you, anyone calling you.
No. We haven't had any. Usually they're supposed to do house checks or like, welfare checks to see if we're okay. We haven't had any. On the 4th day, we got tested and nothing else has happened since then. We haven't had anybody ask us if we need anything. Like, they haven't called to see if, we have any symptoms, nothing. Until we got tested, and then we were told that we would get our results the next day and nothing after that. So we
Wow.
actually came in here and they didn't even know how long we were going to be quarantining for. We just were here. We had no idea what to tell our jobs, our family, nothing. They were just like, we don't know how long you'll have to quarantine for. We just need you to quarantine.
Wow.
So
Okay. And obviously
we
this
kind of
is
just
making
came in
you
here. I'm like,
very, I was going to say, obviously this is making you very uncomfortable.
yes, it's extremely uncomfortable due to the fact that, to my understanding, and I feel like to everyone's understanding, we had all of this lined out. Like, we have a protocol that we follow, and the fact that we have no idea what's going on, yet it wasn't even our fault that we're in this predicament in the first place, is quite confusing to me. Like, this is a place that I was born. Like, I'm Caymanian, yet I have a lack of information on what I'm supposed to be doing, or like what is yet to come, or when I'll be getting out, and when will I be tested, and do I have any support from HSA or people who are coming to check up on me. I have like we're blindsided. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So
it seems really bizarre. And
yeah.
when you were actually placed in quarantine, now I know that you do work for government. Did they go about having you, like, did they contact your employer? Did they say, right, this is what's going on with this young lady right now? How did that come about?
I believe my employer was contacted. I was supposed to return to work on Tuesday. They were contacted later that night. So I had to actually reach out to my employers prior to HSA reaching out, because they didn't tell them what was going on until that night. So basically, I reached out to them and let them know. And then I was told that if I didn't work from home, that my vacation days would be taken due to the fact that I was in quarantine. So again, I was floored at the fact that I was being punished because of negligence that had nothing to do with me. So I like I'm just in awe, honestly. I can't hear you.
Oh, my apologies. I just muted my mic. My apologies. Um,
Okay. I was like, I
sorry,
can't hear
Gabby.
anything you're saying.
Yeah, no, my question was, you're in quarantine because of no one's, not your fault, certainly. So Skylar and Vanjie decide to do whatever they did. So you get put into quarantine by government. You actually work for government in a law enforcement area. And then they tell you that you cannot utilize, I don't know, I thought they were supposed to just give it to you. So now they're telling you that they're going to take out vacation time and basically penalize you for being in quarantine, which is meant to protect the general public and safety because of these jackasses that decided to breach quarantine.
Right, exactly. So that I'm like I just don't understand, like, if I'm being forced to go into quarantine, why my vacation is being taken, because it's not like I flew away and came back. That would be a different story. But this is the fact that, like, because of the negligence of this young lady, I am being forced to use my vacation days, and I'm forced into something that I did not ask for. Like, when we come out into the public, we assume, or at least trust, that no one's going to breach quarantine, that the government has it in control, that people aren't going to slide their bracelets off and leave it in their facilities. Like, so why is it that I'm being punished for attending an event to support family and friends, and now I end up in a house for 14 days along with friends? Like, it blows my mind, honestly.
It's, I mean, Lillian says it absolutely correct here. It is unbelievable. I mean, if your mind is blown, my mind is like double blown because I don't see the logic in this. And I see this points out so many flaws in the system. Like, I want to support Travel Cayman. I want to support this reopening of our borders. And then I see this happening, a situation like this, and it makes me wonder if they didn't even, you were able to go away from a situation for 24 hours after they claimed that they were contact tracing. Then you contact them to say, are you sure I'm not supposed to be in quarantine? Then they change their mind. They put you in mandatory quarantine. They tell you that they have no bracelet for you, that you don't need a bracelet, that they trust you and 3 other individuals to remain in this house. Then no one does any welfare checks on you. They don't make sure that you guys don't need anything. They don't seem to be driving by to just check to see, if you're even trustworthy as they think you are. They don't call your employer initially.
Right.
You have to notify your employer. It's just like, are we sure that this is working as well as we think? Because if this is one situation impacting 4 persons, the logical question for me then is how many other people could be in a similar situation? How many other people might potentially be impacted or having this sort of thing happen to them that don't have the balls to come on the show and to actually tell us what's going on? And so we simply don't know. And the saying that ignorance is bliss? Well, ignorance can kill you. And this is one of those situations where if we don't know what is going on, that's probably not a good situation. And like I said at the onset of the show, this isn't the first time I'm hearing things like this. I've heard of other people say, I've never gotten a phone call, no welfare check, no this, no that. But, they weren't willing to come on the program and, and really speak to this. And so now I'm just like, whoa, seriously? So, Gabby, why did you decide to speak out? Tell us why this was such an important issue for you to speak out about.
I don't know. Honestly, I just don't understand why is it that we always get punished more than a visitor or someone who is not Caymanian? It's always the Caymanian who gets punished. And I don't understand it. Like, it blows my mind every single time. And I'm at the point now where it's come to a point where you can't explain it. There's no way you can justify the fact that I have to yet sit in a house for 14 days. Yet this young lady doesn't have to pay a fine. She doesn't, there's no responsibility on her side. So
Mm-hmm,
that shows everyone else who comes here that they're allowed to just break the law. And then if we're around, we get the shit end of the stick. Like, and I'm tired. Honestly, I don't understand it. I want to know why no one knows about where I am or has the ability to check on me, why I'm not on any documentation stating that I'm in quarantine, why I don't have anything to prove that I'm in quarantine, how I'm able to just walk out this house. Like, is this how we do this on a regular basis with our people? Yet, if someone else breaks the law, we are held accountable because of what? So I basically reached out because I know this is going to happen again, as it always does, until it blows up in our faces and then we attempt to fix it.
Wow.
So I just want people aware at the fact that
Yeah.
we did get impacted,
Yes.
and it's our people who were impacted, and we are paying attention, and we're upset, we're pissed off, and we want someone to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I wonder, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but I'm still shocked that your employer, whose government, is actually going to now tell you that you can't get time off for this. Like, you have to take it from your vacation time. That is, like, to me, adding insult to injury on top of all of this. I mean, that's just ridiculous. We see here Miss Linda has made a comment, which I thought was very interesting. She says, and they've already been awarded for doing an excellent job. Well, they've been rewarded for doing an excellent job. Yes, they've gotten all sorts of OBEs, MBEs, pats on the back, pay raises, whatever, because we said that they've done such a great job. And I'm not trying to take away from, listen, this COVID situation has been immensely difficult for everyone. And I'm not taking away from the job that they have done, right? I'm sure that they have done a lot. But now I'm questioning, and I've been questioning for a very long time because of the stories that I'm hearing. I'm questioning, have they done as great of a job as they are perceived to have done, that they want us to believe that we've done, when we can hear situations like this, which make no sense? Like, to me, there's no way that a public health official or someone who's part of travel command responsible for monitoring, people in quarantine could explain like 5 failures in this one situation and expect me to believe that this is an anomaly, like this isn't the norm. I find that very, very difficult to believe. Because if someone can be so lackadaisical about you going into quarantine without the geofencing equipment and bracelet, just because you work for government, you can be trusted, you quasi law enforcement or whatever, really? If they can be that willy-nilly about it, why am I to believe this is the first time he's told someone, oh, we trust you, you don't need a bracelet? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't believe it's the first time. And that is what's concerning me, that we have more of this happening. We sent an FOI to government trying to figure out when is it that these people are actually getting the virus. Like, are they coming in with it? Is it showing up at entry? Is it showing up later on? At what point? And now I'm really, really concerned that, it just blows my mind. When I first heard this story, I'm like, this has got to be a joke. Like, this cannot even be for real. It's shocking. Wow. So you're going to be in quarantine for a bit longer. Thank God you're not there during the Christmas holidays. I mean, it's a good thing that she came and decided to breach quarantine a little bit beforehand. Has anyone heard from her that you're aware of? I mean, I know you weren't friends with her, so you probably won't even know, but what's the talk amongst kind of your younger crew? Obviously you guys were out there supporting friends at this event. Is the general person who attended this event really pissed off that this even happened?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure she's happy now that she's not going to be charged $10,000, but we haven't really heard anything else. We've kind of just been updated about what is going on in regards to her court on a court basis
Mm-hmm.
and what's going to happen with us. So we've kind of just all kept in the loop about how long we're staying here. Has anybody checked up on you? No. Well, do
Mm-hmm.
you know if she's been tested? No. So they're not going to disclose her information as far as like test results go or if she's been
Mm-hmm.
tested. We just know that all of us got tested at the same time and when our results were going to come back. And then it was, you're going to be tested again when before you get out of quarantine. But we actually
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know. The funny thing is, we saw on the news that we were going to be tested before they even called us. So the news knew we were going to be tested before we even knew we were going to be tested. So it's just like everything that we found out about us is being broadcasted before we know about it.
Wow.
So to my
Wow.
understanding,
So
this is the
from,
thing.
from my perspective, that just means that they're probably just pandering to the media, trying to get information out there that sounds good. Oh, we're doing contact tracing. Oh, we're testing. Da,
Yeah.
da, da, da. And it's like an afterthought to actually get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Gabby, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Like we've just, our internet just dropped a little bit. So Siobhan says, thanks very much. Let me just see. Lillian says, thank you, Gabby, for being a real Caymanian and looking out for us. Proud of you. So yes, I mean, this takes some guts for Gabby to even do this. Jess says, I bet Skylar Mack doesn't even have the manners to apologize for this. We've heard nothing from her or from VJ.
We have heard nothing either. So, and she was
Yeah,
in front of our
unbelievable.
faces.
What we do know she did was, or someone connected to her on the Instagram post, the original post about the breach. She actually complained, I guess, because we called her a jackass. I don't know, but she complained that that post was harassment, and Instagram took it down. We did appeal that, so I don't even know what IG is going to do, but I mean, it's just the audacity of these people. Like, you do something like this, and you get offended that somebody calls you jackass. It's like, really,
Yeah. Yeah. See, but that
Gabby?
is the thing that I'm trying to like explain. Why is it that we are always looked at as a bad person and we get all of these like look at her boyfriend has to wear an ankle bracelet for 2 months, yet she gets 40 hours of community service and she gets to go home. Why is it that he's being punished more than she is? It's
Wow.
always us. It's always us that gets
Yeah.
more punishment than the
And I
other.
see a lot of comments on here about privilege and so on. But Gabby, I know I wouldn't say that you're necessarily busy, but I'm sure you've got other things. You're in quarantine, so you're probably not that busy. But I know it's Saturday. You probably just want to chill out a little bit. Jess says that you're very brave. So I want to thank you, just like Joyce Ann says here, thanks, Gabby, for choosing to take your stand. Shame on the government for putting you through this. And I think that we all share that sentiment. And remember, it's not just Gabby. There are 4 others who are quarantined with her. And one of those includes a child. I mean, how unfair is this? So how are you getting, Gabby, like groceries and stuff like that? Like, did you have enough time since you only had an hour? Was there enough time for you to get all that stuff sorted before going into the quarantine facility that you're at?
No, there wasn't any time. Like I think we're all grateful for Let's Eat and Domino's because and my dad. So that's pretty much how and we have like some friends who are nice enough to drop stuff off at our door if we need it. But it's just like no one has asked us how we're eating. And that's the crazy part of it all, I think. Just
Wow.
if we're okay, like if we need anything. So I thank God that we have family and friends who are kind enough to check up on us and make sure that we're okay because other than that I really don't know how we would be eating from day to day or even be okay.
Wow. Unbelievable. And so let me just try to understand something as well. When you were tested, right? So when this individual did come in the fourth day to test you, did they, because I'm kind of thinking about how this virus spreads, did they show up in the hazmat suit? Did they show up like with other personnel? Like, how was that aspect of this conducted?
It was one individual, and they showed up with a mask on, and I believe he had like a head scarf type of thing. And then he walked in the house, and then he put on some type of like, I would say it's like a protective scrub type thing. There was no hazmat suit, nothing of that sort. And they pretty much just explained that they didn't want to show up with the protective at the front door because of the neighbors, and they didn't want to draw attention. So they pretty much just did that, and we got tested in the house, and they left. And we have
So
not.
they didn't put on a hazmat suit coming into the house,
No.
but they put on some sort of like, was it like what they wear at the hospital? Like if you go see the doctor, the kind of plastic gown looking thing?
Yeah, so kind of like, like when you go into like when a baby's being delivered, you kind of like, and the husband has to put on like the blue scrubs type thing.
Right.
That's pretty much what they put on.
And Jake makes mention of the fact that Let's Eat isn't cheap when you got to place
No,
multiple
it's
orders for
not.
14 days.
Yes.
And we don't know if you're going to be reimbursed for that. I mean, someone mentioned earlier that maybe people need to be suing Skylar for all of the trouble. If you lose vacation, figure out what your vacation value is and sue Skylar for that vacation time. Because that's money. Like I mean, she can pay you for it, but you still don't get the days. It's kind of like, what's the point? Like a lot of people want their vacation, not because of the monetary value, but just because they want to take a break. So that just seems so incredibly unfair. Jess says, see how our people get punished for no fault of their own. I see a lot of you are commenting about the fact that, is this a situation of white privilege? Listen, I don't really know what kind of privilege this is. But if you don't see the obvious disparity between what's happening to the Caymanians in this situation and how they're being treated and really penalized versus what has happened to Skylar, she gets 40 hours of community service. She obviously has to pay for her own quarantine, which that's on her. And that's pretty much it. We don't even know if the government has said nothing about whether or not they're going to block her from returning to the island, like none of that. It just begs so many questions. Like, I just don't understand why we're even here. One of the primary questions I had from the onset is, how did Skylar even get permission to come in? She's only been dating VJ for a couple months, like literally. Yes. And so what questions did the Travel Cayman team ask of her to ascertain why she was coming to Cayman, who she was going to come and visit? Did she actually say to them, like, I would love to see her entry form? Did she say to them, oh, I'm coming for this event? They still allowed her in? Or I'm coming to see my boyfriend who is a jet ski guy, which everybody in Cayman knows him because I think he's like, I guess, pretty good at jet skiing. So everyone would know what he does, and they couldn't put two and two together. Ooh, event this weekend. She's coming in now. She's dating Vanjit. I bet you that's why. Like, on what basis did she come in? I don't even understand.
Why didn't she come 14 days before so she was able to quarantine and then go?
She could have planned this and avoided this whole thing entirely. I mean, my good friend Mary had a birthday last night, and her daughter wanted to come from the UK for her birthday. She planned ahead of time, booked her ticket so that she could be in quarantine for the 14 days, get tested, get cleared, and be able to show up last night and surprise her family. You can do it. It's not brain surgery. It just requires planning ahead of time.
It's not exactly. And so quite frankly, if you can travel all the way here, then you can pay for quarantine and afford it. So that's my thing. Like that was selfish. Like her decision was selfish to do what she did, and the fact that she was able to slide off her bracelet and no one knew. The fact that an actual Cayman had to call the police to let them know, or they would have never known. is the sad part.
Exactly. And that's another question that I've asked before. All of these breaches that have occurred, whether it's Dr. Pascal and his wife, whether it's this particular instance and others that they're investigating, none of those have been breaches that the quarantine team, travel Cayman team, and whoever they have monitoring these individuals have actually caught. It's been other people who've observed them and say, hold on, isn't that person supposed to be in quarantine? And they're the ones who picked up the phone and called 911 to say, I've got a quarantine breach to report. So that alone concerns me because I'm like, this system cannot be working all that well, honestly.
Yep.
Jake says because the government putting her wristband loose, she was able to slip it off. And now this young lady got to be punished and get her vacation days taken away. Ridiculous. Absolutely. Cassidy joins in and says it's really unfair that she's being penalized. It wasn't her fault. Alice agrees. She says, I can't believe what's actually happening here. Whitney says the Cayman Islands government is ridiculous. It baffles me seriously how stupid they are. And, you know, again, I don't want them to think that, ooh, I'm just picking on them because I have nothing else to do. Trust me, it's Saturday morning. I have plenty else to do. But this is very, very concerning. Kathy says that she's high risk. A lot of us fall into high risk categories, not even because we're sick. You just are over. If you're overweight, you're in a high risk category, folks. If you have high blood pressure, you're in a high risk category. You may have some underlying condition that you don't know about. You are in a high risk category. So Tammy says there are 1,300 people in quarantine. Is it really a surprise that they aren't being monitored properly? How many people work on that team? Tammy, excellent question. I've asked the question before. And honestly, I'm trying to remember the last numbers that they gave me, but say it's 20 people. There's no way that statistically those people working the shifts that they do could be checking on all of the people that they need to be checking on. It really appears to be impossible. Louise says, we really appreciate this young lady coming forward. You have my support. Let's move it forward. You have voice. CMR is here. Yes, we are here for you, Gabby, and we really appreciate you speaking out in this. Trisha, says, money talks, BS walks. Roy says, I hope that you guys remember this come election time. I hope so too, Roy. I really hope so. Because this is a failure on the government. It's a failure on the government to fool the people into thinking, oh, now we've got a $10,000 fine and 2 years imprisonment. When the truth of the matter is, you have up to, which is very important words in law, which means you don't get any fine at all. So they have actually watered down what was previously there. This really baffles my mind. They have taken the power out of that legislation and put it in the hands of the courts. And as we can see, judges are ever so lenient. They don't really care. Stephanie says there should be mandatory negative testing before even setting foot on a plane, in my honest opinion. The problem with that, Stephanie, I'll tell you the truth. We saw it in the Bahamas and other places where Americans in particular were falsifying their tests. So we can't trust them to do the test themselves is the bottom line. So we have to do the test. And the only way for us to do the test, I guess, is once they show up at the airport, we test them before they go into quarantine. Isn't that crazy? Because they have been lying. They were taking fake documents to the Bahamas, claiming that they had a negative COVID test when they didn't. Joy Sand says, that's my belief. We as Caymanians are second-class citizens in our own country. A lot of things is not right with our government. CC says, and yet people are saying it's not a matter of privilege. Prayers, Whitney, we're going to need more than prayers around here. We're going to need people to get out and vote some of these people out of office. Whitney wants to know when we're going to do a Christmas live with your viewers, live interacting. Whitney, believe it or not, you guys can join in on the discussion anytime you want. So if you guys want to come on the video right now, CC has done it before. You're always welcome to do so. I think I probably need to promote that more, but yeah, absolutely. It's doable. And we would invite you to come on because, you know, we're all about free speech here, folks. Gabby, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. This was shocking and an eye-opener, to say the least. And it says a lot. Joyce Ann is talking about what kind of example is our government setting for young Caymanians? Well, it's clearly not a very good example at all. Thank you, Gabby, for being honest, first of all, and for staying in quarantine, despite the fact that clearly you don't need to. I think that we need to, I think it's unfair for you and everyone else that's there to even be paying for, your own food and stuff when this isn't your fault. So if I can just put a public request out there, and I know that you obviously haven't asked for this, but anybody else wants to throw a couple dollars in the money pot, and let's give this 4 people who are in quarantine some money, at least for food, to take them through the rest of the quarantine period, which they are not even sure how long it's going to be, so that they're not having to, order every single day from Let's Eat. Because as Jake has pointed out, Let's Eat isn't cheap. There's a delivery fee involved in addition to whatever you're paying for the meal. Would that be okay with you, Gabby, if we tried to arrange that for you?
That would be really sweet. Totally
Yeah.
up to you.
It's just not fair, and I don't think that, I think you guys are being penalized in more ways than one. I don't think that that's fair. So maybe there's something that we can do in terms of that. Just trying to get through a few more of your comments. Linda says we need to find out how many persons are employed by government. Do they contact tracing and their nationality? We keep asking the questions, Miss Linda, and we are waiting for responses now. I think it's over a month for one of our COVID questions. And apparently the question required them getting legal advice or something, is what I was told. So that is why they haven't responded to us. Like, it was such a challenging question that they needed to lawyer up. And I don't know. I'm still waiting to see, because I don't know. It was a series of questions, so I don't know which of the questions threw them for a loop, but we are still waiting to hear back from them. So it's a lot of questions out there. Beth says Gabby is the one who needs an MBE. Thank you very much. Let's Eat. Yes, we read that one, I think, already. Lillian says we're penalized if the visitor is white and from certain countries. These people in charge are prejudiced and still with the slave mentality, thinking the master is right and we must cater to them. I said it before and I'll say it again. If she was Black, 100% different outcome. Well, not even Black, child. If she's Caymanian, it would have been a different outcome as well, clearly. So, no bueno. Crystal says, I would never waste money on Let's Eat. Their distance fees are ridiculous. Well, they don't have a choice, Crystal.
Yeah.
Who else is going to bring them food 24/7? They got to eat. So they don't really have a choice, So Sherry Ann wants to know if she has a work permit to do community service. I don't think she needs one for court-ordered community service. No. Jake says Popeyes has an $8 combo, $13 worth of fees if you get it, I guess, from Let's Eat. No, child, we can't be fooling with that. It's totally disgusting that she's getting away with this and boyfriend being treated so badly. Well, I don't have any sympathy for him, Anne. Let me be very, very clear, because he is the reason why she's here. So for me, this is a double team situation. But what I don't understand is why he's being treated differently than her, why he's being penalized more than her. When at the end of the day, she's the one, she's an adult. So I don't know what he was enticing her with. I guess the Cayman goodies that she was probably looking forward to after all these months, right? But ultimately, she was the one who could say, okay, honey, I can plan ahead for this trip. Or, you know what? Yes, I'm here, but I'm going to stay put in quarantine, because nobody can tell me that if she breached quarantine like this, that he wasn't at her apartment that first night that she was here. Hello, somebody was knocking boots, and I don't care what nobody else wants to say about that. That is the truth. And of course, Travel Cayman wasn't catching it, because apparently they're not catching a lot of stuff, unfortunately. So I don't think that they've told us, Stephanie, what her results are, because I guess that would go against, privacy, data protection.
Yeah,
so we don't
tell us anything.
Yeah, they're not going to tell you. So Renita, thank you so much. This girl's parents have money, and I'm sure the parents probably paid government something for her to get off scotch-free, because this is shit Cayman government does. Well, you know what? If they have money, which I know that they do, they should have just paid the $10,000 fine. But they can't pay it if the court doesn't order it paid, and the court doesn't have to order it paid because our legislators, cabinet folks, remember I told you guys who the cabinet members were last week? They were the ones who drafted this nonsense legislation. So this is what we get. And this is why people are like, when we don't hold them responsible for their actions, by voting them out, like someone said, we better remember this come election day. This is the foolishness that we get. Like, it just has to stop. I'm not even going to get into the shenanigans that happened last night at this ceremony that we had to rename the LA. We're going to talk about that on Monday as well. So Leanne, home quarantine should be banned. I agree with you. They should have to quarantine at the hotel with guards. A few bad apples spoil the whole bunch. And in fact, Leanne, a few bad apples will infect a lot of people in this small community. Renita says, Cayman government's disgusting. We need to find out who's responsible for giving her the slap on the wrist. Well, I just explained that. The people that you ultimately hold responsible for this mix-up is your elected officials. Simple. Gabby's not in a hotel. She's actually at a private apartment residence. Yes, so they're all in quarantine together. All right, Gabby, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate your bravery for coming on the program and sharing with us what your experiences have been. Any final words for our listeners?
I would just say, guys, be careful, because I guess in this point in time, we don't know who is able to breach, who is at risk, and who is not at risk. So I would just say tread lightly and stay 6 feet apart still. And thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Gabby. Really appreciate it. So Lillian says we voted out last time and they didn't move. So the dictator leadership. Well, you know what? The problem, Lillian, is we didn't vote out enough of them. So the progressives was still able to take back leadership of this country because, yes, we removed 3 ministers, but guess what? We still put Alden back in. We put 2 newcomers in. We put Barbara in. We put David White in, and all the others that make up the PPM team. So this is why, if you really want to make a shift, because unfortunately in this last election, it was pretty much split down the middle. Nobody seems to be prepared to move Makiva Bush out of West Bay, and he will go with the highest bidder. So Alden offered him the sweetest deal, which in his case was to get Speaker of the House. And look at how well that ended up for the progressives. They can't even speak out about the fact that this man has beat the TCHT out of a bar manager and has now pleaded guilty to that. Throwing tubs at her, pulling her hair, punching her in the face, choking her, putting her in a chokehold. If you guys saw the video of what I saw in court on Thursday, you'd be voting them all out. All of the progressives, all of this coalition government would have to go. And anybody who supports them and their shenanigans and their lack of ability to stand up against violence in this country, violence against women. I was disgusted yesterday. And like I said, I'm not going to really address this today because I'll do it on Monday's show. But I was really disgusted yesterday at some of the things that he had the audacity to say in the Legislative Assembly about the people of this country trying to voice their opinion and stand up for their rights, given the kind of person that he has obviously proven himself to be. It's just shocking and it's unbelievable. Anyway, folks, I appreciate that it's Saturday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, I wanted to bring this to you, because I think it's an indictment on us. And we should all be very, very careful out there. You cannot be too careful. I know a lot of people are still avoiding events like that one. They're avoiding large crowds. And it's sad that you have to do that because you just don't know what person is not going to care about the larger community and care about who they could potentially be infecting. And that is a sad indictment, I think, on all of them and all of us as a people and our government and our legislators. And yes, we do need to hold them accountable. Folks, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. It's Saturday. It looks like a beautiful day out there. Go outside, get some fresh air. I guess stay away from large crowds, unfortunately. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care until then.